Hi all, I am Professor Ravi Kumar, Assistant Professor, School of Mechanical Engineering, Sastra, deemed to be University. I welcome you all to the next lecture today. Today basically the topic is we are basically going to cover only mainly two topics. First topic is airfoil nomenclature uh, and terminologies that be used for designing the airfoil, and after at the end of this discussion, right, we will see the airfoil characteristics, for what purpose airfoil is to be designed, and we will be covering some concepts on aerodynamic forces. So prior to this class, right, in previous lecture, we have discussed all the aerodynamic force calculations in details, where I discussed about the pressure distribution, why pressure distribution is much needed, and what all informations we can get from pressure distribution, that also got covered, right. So today we will see actually we will start with the basic definition of airfoil, what is an airfoil, then we'll go to the understanding of its behavior, right, when it's exposed to the atmosphere. So the first question arises: what is an airfoil? So generally, right, we define airfoil is a fully streamlined body, or you can say it is a specially designed body to get a normal reaction when it is exposed to the free stream at certain angle of attack. Alright. So it has to be kept at a certain angle in order to get a normal reaction. So it is designed basically to get a normal reaction. That normal reaction is known as lift. That's why we used to say, if you look at the what do we say, shape of an airfoil. Basically, shape of an airfoil is having top surface is having more curvature compared to the bottom surface. So bottom surface will be almost flat. Will be almost flat. So if we look at the history of airfoil, the first patented airfoil was developed by the H.F. Phillips. This was an Englishman, H.F. Phillips, in 1884. First patented airfoil was developed by H.F. Phillips in 1884. H.F. Phillips was an Englishman who carried out a serious internal test on its airfoil, right? And he gave certain sets of airfoil. Later on in 1902, Wright brothers, right, they started conducting a series of wind tunnel experiments on their own airfoil, and finally they come up with more efficient airfoil, which contributed to their first successful heavier than air flight on December 17, 1903. Right, this very famous day in the history of aviation. So first credit goes to the Wright brothers, those who invented the first heavier than air flight on December 17, 1903. Later on, in the early stage, if we look at the NACA basically, this term already I introduced you about this. NACA is National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. The forerunner of this became NASA, National Aeronautics Space Administration, in 1952. So earlier, prior to 1952, it was known as NACA, National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. Uh, this committee started a series of wind tunnel experiments, right, on set of airfoils, right. Those airfoils were designed systematically, rationally, right, rationally and systematically, and they come up with a family of airfoils. They gave around various families of airfoil, and some of those NACA airfoils are commonly used in the aircrafts. So NACA airfoils are known as well-known standards. So whenever we are designing any airfoil, we are usually comparing with the NACA airfoil, right? So NACA is an organization which has now become NASA, right, after 1952. So in early 1930s, if we look at the early framework of airfoil developments, NACA contributed a lot. So in 1930s, they started a series of wind tunnel experiments on the airfoil, which were basically designed rationally and systematically. There was a particular technical relationship were used to decide its length, its thickness, and also though this NACA has been given a credit to give the nomenclatures to the airfoil, right? So what nomenclature, already I gave you some idea about the airfoil nomenclatures. Today we will cover that in brief. So let's I draw the airfoil shape. Then we'll see. This was the story because started from HF flip. Later on, right, we'll just have given some contribution, and later on NACA, right? NACA did a lot of work and they come up with a family of airfoils that we will develop, that we will discuss in next topic. So let's start with the airfoil. So airfoil is something, if I draw, it will be looking like this. So this is an airfoil. So we look at the shape, right? Top surface is having more curvature compared to the bottom surface. The bottom surface is almost flat, and top surface is having more curved. So if I say the first point, the forward most point is known as this point. If I say this is known as leading edge, this is known as leading edge, and most backward point, right, this point is known as trailing edge. If we connect this leading edge and trailing edge by a shortest distance, right, if I connect directly by a line, this will be a shortest distance. If I connect like this line is known as chord chord line chord line. So chord line is a shortest distance connecting the leading edge to the trailing edge, and distance between these 2 points, basically these 2 points, is known as chord length. Chord length. So this is the chord length. Usually we do not buy small c. So this is the chord length, right? There is another line, right, which will divide this airfoil into two equal parts. So that will be lying in between. This is known as mean camber line. So mean camber line is the locus of all the points midway between the top and bottom surface when measured perpendicular to the mean camber line itself. So if you measure distance of top and bottom surface perpendicular mean camber line, you will find exactly at midway. So this is the locus of all the points midway between top and bottom surface when measured perpendicular to the mean camber line. So this is your top surface, right? And this is my bottom surface, right? Now some more things will be defined. So we have defined two lines, chord line, mean camber line. The difference between distance between chord line and mean camber line, this distance is known as camber, C-A-M-B-E-R, camber. So distance between the mean camber line and chord line when measured perpendicular to the chord line, keep in mind, perpendicular to the chord line is known as camber. So if it is a cambered airfoil, right, or you can say asymmetrical airfoil, it will have certain value of camber, and camber can be positive or negative depend on the applications. You can choose the airfoil, right. Yes. If my camber is 0, in that case the mean camber line is going to coincide with the chord line, and that case your airfoil will be symmetrical. It will call as symmetrical airfoil. Now next parameter is called thickness. So thickness I can say like this. This is known as thickness. So thickness is the distance between the top and bottom surface of an airfoil when measured perpendicular to the chord line. When measured perpendicular to the chord line, this is known as the thickness of the airfoil. So this thickness also goal defined, camber also goal defined. We know top surface and bottom surface. Top surface is more curved, bottom surface is almost flat. And if you look at the leading edge is the curved one. So curved will have radius. So this radius that I am talking about, this radius. So leading edge radius, leading edge usually will be a curved, and curved leading edge is having certain value. The leading radius is 2% of chord length. So this leading edge radius is 2% of the chord length usually be considered. Leading edge radius 2% of chord length. This is the chord length. So these all nomenclatures were given by the NACA. So this is the biggest contribution in the development of an airfoil done by the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. So NACA came up with various type of airfoil families. One by one we will discuss here. So NACA developed basically a family of airfoils based on some logical numbering system, right? So first of its kind of family developed by the NACA was the 4 digits series, right? 4 digit series. So this is over. So I am erasing this. So let's start with the NACA airfoil families. So NACA airfoils. The first family was the NACA 4 digits series. 4 digit series. So the first family of airfoil was developed in early days in 1930s itself. So 1930s NACA gave first family of airfoil, that was the 4 digits series. So for example, if I consider the NACA 2412, this is one example of this. So these numbers are having its own meanings, right? Every number is having its own meaning. So I will explain. The first digit represents maximum camber in hundredth of chord. So first digit is the maximum camber in hundredth of the chord, this one, and next digit, second digit represent the location of maximum camber in tenth of chord, and last two digits represent maximum thickness in hundredth, right? In hundredth, or you can say the hundredth of the chord. So for the NACA 2412, for example, we can say this NACA 2412 is having maximum camber is equal to 0.02 C, right? And location, or you can say maximum camber located at 0.4 C behind leading edge, add here 10th of the chord, behind leading edge. Always we measure from the far front point, right? So behind the leading edge, having thickness is equal to 12%, right? Thickness is 12%. 12% of chord, basically all things are related in hundredth of the chord, right? Keep in mind, 100 of the chord. So 12% of the chord length is my thickness. So chord length is one of the most important criteria when we are designing the airfoil. So once we know the chord length, we can relate all the parameter. Thickness can be find out, camber can be find out, right? And location of maximum camber can also be find out. So this is visible to you, right? So this is the first family of airfoil developed by the NACA. So this is the one thing. So now I am erasing this. Hmm. So next series is second series is the NACA 5 digits series. So immediately after that, NACA developed the second family of airfoil, that is known as NACA 5 digit series. So for example, I will take one example of NACA 23012. So here it is having 5 digits if you look at. So first digit when multiply by 3 by 2, if you multiply first digit by 3 by 2, gives designed lift coefficient in 10th. Design lift coefficient in 10th, 1 by 10th, right? Next two digits when divided by 2 give location of maximum camber in hundredth of chord, right? So this is first digit, next two, and last two digits shows the maximum thickness in percentage of chord, right? So for example, NACA 23012, now we can say this NACA 23012 is having if you multiply 3 by 2 and divide by 10, you can say CL is equal to 0.3, coefficient of lift is 0.3, right? Location of maximum camber is divided by 2, 0.15 C, right? This is the location, and maximum thickness is equal to 12%. This is the one thing, the maximum thickness. So as per these numbers, we can easily identify what is the maximum thickness and what is the location, what is the design coefficient of lift. This is the second family of airfoil given by the NACA. Now question arises, what if my airfoil is symmetrical? So symmetrical airfoil, as I mentioned, symmetrical airfoil, there is no difference between the chord line and mean camber line. So my camber is going to be 0. Camber is going to be 0. I will not be bothered about the location of maximum camber. So two digits are going to be 0. So for example of symmetrical airfoil, I can say NACA 0018. This is one example of symmetrical airfoil in 4 digit. So those 20 means these are camber and location of camber. This is the thickness. Last two digits are thickness. So this is one example of symmetrical airfoil. If we go to the last family of airfoils that were given by the NACA, are these 6 digits. So 5 digit we have seen, now 6 digit. So third family is the NACA 6 digits series. The most widely used airfoil family developed by the NACA uh, in the World War II time, right? In the World War II was these laminar flow. This is also known as laminar flow airfoils. Laminar flow, 6 digits airfoil. So I will take one example of 6 digits 65218. So example is NACA 65218. This is one example. So now question will arise where the 6, 1, 2 and dash and then 3 digits are there. So total 6 digits. So the first digit in this, first digit simply represents the series. So first represent the series. So here 6 is there. So 6 is the series, right? The next after this, second digit gives the location of minimum pressure. So second digit gives the location of minimum pressure point uh, point in tenth of the chord of chord length. So minimum pressure point is now a point 1 C right behind the leading edge for the symmetrical thickness distribution at zero lift. For this symmetrical thickness distribution at zero lift, if we are going to find out the location of minimum pressure, that will be at 0.1 C times of, or you can say whatever location is there, that digit divided by 10th C will give the location of minimum pressure. And the next digit represents design lift coefficient, designed lift coefficient in 10th. So here next is 2 divided by 10 is y, design lift coefficient, and last two digit gives the maximum thickness in hundredth. So I can say 18%. So for the given thing, NACA 65218, I can say this is the sixth series, right? And location, I can say location of minimum pressure point is equal to 0.5 C behind leading edge, right? And design lift coefficient, designed CL is equal to 0.2, and thickness is equal to 18%. Thickness is 18%. Like that, I can say this is the sixth digit airfoil. So these are the three families of airfoil developed by the NACA. First is the 4 digits, 5 digits, and 6 digits. So this is having n number of airfoils. So this here I given only one example. So like there are so many numbering systems are there. So you will have thousands of airfoils, and one of those airfoils can be used either in the aircraft or in wind turbine blades, right, or normal turbine blades. One of these configurations we are using to design the things. But nowadays, if you look at nowadays, all the big giant aircraft manufacturing company like Boeing, Airbus, they are having their own special purpose designed airfoil, and that are being used on their own fleets. Like Boeing 717, 727, they are having their own special purpose airfoils. How this became possible? This kind of capability came because of the modern airfoil design computer programs, right? Which uses either parallel techniques or direct numerical finite difference solution of governing differential equations for the flow. So flow can be simulated easily with the available increment in capacity of computers, right? Easily we can design and simulate, and easily we can predict the shape of the airfoil. So now all the big giant, right, basically they have designed their own special purpose airfoil, but still the performances of those airfoils are compared with the NACA airfoil. So NACA airfoils are known as the well-known standard, so any new airfoil which we are going to design should be compared with this. So NACA airfoil gives the maximum possible performances, and compared to that, whatever you are getting the actual performance. So this is regarding the NACA airfoils and airfoil nomenclatures. Let's see now airfoil characteristics. What is the time now? It is 25. So we are still having time. So next is airfoil characteristics. So the first and most characteristics of property means airfoils are designed to get a lift. So let's see the lift curve slope or lift behavior. Lift curve, lift curve we will talking about. We know that whenever airfoil comes into the contact with the air, so airflow will take place over the surface of the airfoil. The top surface is having more curved compared to the bottom surface, so will flow velocity at the top will be accelerating at a faster rate compared to the bottom. So we are keeping the airfoil as, let's assume this is an airfoil. So if I am keeping this a certain angle of attack and airflow is coming from this side. So the top surface is traveling at faster rate compared to the bottom surface because bottom surface is giving the obstruction to the flow. So the flow velocity is decreasing at the bottom surface, but it's accelerating on the top surface. So as per the Bernoulli's principle, you know, whenever there is an increment in kinetic energy, there will be loss of pressure energy. So that means that top surface pressure will be negative and bottom surface pressure will be positive. So as a result of that, there will be unbalanced force acting on the airfoil, which will try to lift the airfoil from its position, and that unbalanced force is known as lift. Clear or not? So it is very simple generic understanding of the lift. So when I keeping the airfoil a certain angle of attack, and because of this flow behavior right over the top and bottom surface, it generates the lift. That is one way, and in the second lecture I clearly said why basically this lift is getting generated. We are basically keeping this airfoil at an angle of attack. What is the purpose of this? Purpose of this is to create the flow disturbance, right? Earlier flow will be uniform, which is coming at parallel. All the laminas of flow will be parallel to each other, right? And all of a sudden obstruction is present in the way of the flow, and flow is getting disturbed, and because of that disturbance some turbulences or some circulation will be generated inside the system, and when that flow is traveling over the object, the circulation will be impinging over the top surface of the airfoil. So because of the net effect of those vertices, small vertices, there will be a net circulation which will be acting around this airfoil, and that will basically generate the lift. The moment your circulation is going to be reduced, it will lose the lift. That's a very basic funda. And now it requires one angle of attack, right? So at some appropriate angle of attack, it will have a design lift, and if you are keep on increasing the angle of attack, lift will increase up to certain thing, right? So let's suppose when it is capped at certain minimum angle, right, we are having attached flow at top and bottom surface. With further increase, still we are having attached flow certain length of the top surface. We are further going to increase, a point will reach, right, when there will be no flow on the top surface, right, flow will directly separate from the leading edge. That condition is known as stalling of flow separation on the top surface. When there is no attached flow on the top surface, that means no negative pressure will be generating on the top surface. So all of a sudden, you know what will happen, F4 will lose the altitude, right? So that means all of a sudden there will be loss of lift, and that condition is known as stalling condition in the aeronautical terminology. Stalling is nothing but flows operation on the top surface. So there is a threshold value of angle of attack, we cannot cross that. So for the normal airfoil, usually we consider that angle of attack is around 16 degree. So between 14 and 16 degrees somewhere, stalling will occur in most of the airfoils. So beyond stalling, flow will become unsteady, and we cannot exactly say. Sometime there will be a incremental lift, because the moment stalling happens, right, airfoil will lose the altitude. The moment it's losing the altitude, the angle of attack will get decreased. The moment it is getting decreasing, right, flow will try to reattach over the surface. The moment it reattaches again, it will start generating the lift, but it cannot reach that value of lift which you are generating at 16-degree angle of attack. So there will be a fluctuating kind of things will happen. So stalling, don't take it like that. Stalling means all of a sudden a foil or aircraft is going to be completely loose from the altitude. It will not be like that, right? It will lose the altitude, again flow will reattach, then again separation will occur, then again reattachment. So it will be a continuous kind of oscillating wave kind of motion will happen to the aircraft. So stalling doesn't mean all of a sudden aircraft is going to come on ground, right? It will lose the altitude, further reattachment will happen. If you are not able to control again stalling will happen. So like that, in a series of stalling you will come on ground, right? But usually we control that. That is not stalling. So if we draw the behavior over the CL, if I consider lift coefficient here and angle of attack here. So angle of attack no need to cover, right? Already I said you what is the angle of attack. This is the coefficient of lift. CL is the coefficient of lift. Here is the angle of attack. So if I am saying this is symmetrical airfoil means if I am keeping my symmetrical airfoil at 0 degree angle of attack, it will not be generating lift, right? If I am increasing the angular, right, at that time CL will increase. So it will be something like this. So it increases linearly. It will go like this. A point will reach. Immediately after that, there will be stalling. So stalling will be represented like this. So this point is known as stalling point. Stalling point. So corresponding angle I can get here. This is called alpha stall, right? Alpha stall for symmetrical. Symmetrical I am representing here. So after that there will be loss of lift. If you go this side again, if you want to know what is the behavior, it will again reattach. It will go like this. Then like that it will be happening. So that is not the part of our study. We will not consider that. Just we stop here. So this is stalling, right? So lift is increasing up to certain angle, and beyond that it is stalling. So if you look at this, is almost linear. So if we take the slope of it, this is known as A naught. A naught is known as lift curve slope. Lift curve slope, right, for a symmetric airfoil. This is the case of symmetric airfoil. If it is a camber airfoil will have certain camber. Means camber represents the curvature of the top surface. So curvature of the top surface will be more. So if I draw like this condition when stalling happened, that condition will be something like this. Airfoil is traveling like this and airflow is coming and separating over here. Directly separating over here. Here you will have a touched flow, but here it is separated. So more vertices will be present. So this is called separation on top surface. So on top surface it got separated, right? Same situation will happen at negative side. If you are going to negative side, right, same situation will happen when keep on you instead of going like this, you are going like this, right? Then a point will come at bottom surface, you will not have flow. So there is a separated flow on the bottom surface. So that is called negative lift. Basically in negative lift condition we are not going that side, right? There also the same kind of behavior will happen. This side also you can draw like this, right? So this is 0. So I want to extend this line slightly. This is 0. So this is in the case of symmetrical. So this zone basically here it is the attached flow basically. So if you want to know the characteristic here flow behavior will be something like this. Even though its size increased, right, flow will be attached over the surface. It has not fully separated. So it is attached. So this is the attached flow condition. Attached flow condition. This whole linear line is attached to flow, and immediately a angle will come. At that time there will be flow separation on the top surface. That is called stalling. So this is the case of symmetrical airfoil. But is a camber airfoil, it's already having certain camber. So if we are keeping this airfoil at 0 degree angle of attack, it will be generating still some lift. All right. So in that case, a lift curve slope will be something like this. It will be going like this, right? It will be going like this and separate here. So you look at this value and corresponding this value. This is known as maximum CL, right? This is the case of symmetrical, and this is the CL max for cambered or unsymmetrical, and corresponding stalling. If you look at this is the alpha stall for cambered Now problem is that if my curvature is there, curvature will give large lift compared to the symmetrical one which is having less curvature, but stalling will occur earlier than the stalling of symmetric airfoil. But overall, effectiveness, if you are going to compare between symmetrical and unsymmetrical, then unsymmetrical are much effective than the symmetrical because they are generating the maximum lift coefficient higher than the maximum lift coefficient of symmetric airfoil for a given range of angle of attack. So for the given range of angle of attack, symmetrical airfoil are much more efficient than the unsymmetric airfoils are much more efficient than the symmetrical airfoil. So if you look at 0 degree, they are generating something lift right here. So if I take the this slope, I am representing that y small a. So small a is my lift curve slope for the unsymmetric airfoil or cambered airfoil, and but it is starting at certain here, right? So it is going to the negative side of alpha. This is negative alpha, and this point, right, this point is known as alpha L is equal to 0. Means at this angle my lift will be 0, right? At this point lift will be 0, and beyond that lift is increasing. If I am going downside, lift will be negative. Keep in mind this side also can go, and same kind of curvature I can get, and this is the stalling point. So if we are comparing these cambered and symmetric airfoil, just look at this, right? Behavior is almost same, but camber airfoil basically is starting from negative side because it is having positive camber. So due to positive camber, what is happening? It is generating some lift at 0 degree angle of attack. So if you want to make a lift at 0, you have to go to the negative side of angle, that is called negative lift to 0 angle of attack. Right, that's the one thing. So this alpha L naught 0 is called 0 lift angle of attack. So that will define. So 0 lift angle of attack, this is known as alpha L is equal to 0. So this is the angle of attack as with at which lift will be 0. And for symmetrical airfoil there is no alpha L naught, right? For symmetrical we can say alpha L0 is equal to 0. There is no alpha L naught. But for unsymmetrical or cambered, you will find alpha L naught that will lie between -2 to -3 degree. This is fixed basically. This is basically a part of airfoil design. This is a part of airfoil design that will be fixed. That is not going to vary. So alpha L is equal to 0 for cambered airfoil will lie between -2 to -3. Any value is possible, right? So -2 to -3. This is the range of 0 lift angle of attack. That's the one thing. Now you come to the lift curve slope. So lift curve slope, how will you define? So lift curve slope, the next parameter. So we can say A is equal to change in CL divided by change in alpha, because change in CL and change in alpha, this is called slope. So I am defining this A. A is dCl by d alpha. So I can say A is equal to dCl divided by alpha minus alpha naught, or I can say CL is equal to A alpha minus alpha naught, or I can say CL is equal to A into alpha effective. So coefficient of lift entirely depends on alpha effective. So alpha effective is nothing but geometrical angle of attack or angle of attack minus 0 lift angle of attack if it is a cambered airfoil. If it is a symmetrical airfoil, I will not have this value alpha L naught. So I can say CL is equal to, instead of writing A, I will write A naught. A naught is the lift curve slope for the symmetrical airfoil. Small a is the lift curve slope for the cambered airfoil. So coefficient of lift can be written as CL is equal to A alpha effective. Alpha effective is L minus alpha minus alpha L naught. Alpha L naught is fixed. Alpha is variable, that depends, right, at what angle of attack you are flying. This is one thing. So this is in the case of cambered airfoil, right? Cambered airfoil you can say. and or Cl is equal to A naught into alpha. This is a very simple thing. This is for symmetrical airfoil. Symmetrical airfoil. So if I relate lift curve slope for camber airfoil with the lift curve slope for uncambered airfoil, right, that's called symmetrical airfoil, I will get another relationship. Derivation I am not giving to you directly. I will give you the formula that you keep as it is. If you need derivation, I can derive that. But that is not a part of your syllabus. So lift curve slope for camber airfoil is A naught 1 plus A naught upon pi into E into AR. This is the relationship between the lift curve slope for cambered airfoil and lift curve slope for symmetric airfoil. Where A is the cambered airfoil lift curve slope, A naught is the lift curve slope for symmetric airfoil, and E is known as Oswald efficiency factor. I said most of the case we consider 1, or it lies between 0.85 to 1, right? Any value you can consider. Pi is pi and AR is known as aspect ratio. Aspect ratio, right? So the moment I know being span, chord length, aspect ratio can be calculated. E is a fixed value between 0.85 to 1, any value I can consider, right? So I can substitute that. If I know A naught, I can get A. If I know A, I can get A naught. So this is the mutual relationship between the elliptical slope for symmetrical airfoil and cambered airfoil. So this is the thing, right? Today I gave you the properties of airfoil. So properties is man is the lift. So lift is generated due to the pressure difference, or you can say due to the circulation around the system. And we have seen the lift curve slope. So today, as a conclusory remark, what all things we have covered? We have covered basic definition of airfoil. We have seen the airfoil terminologies. We have seen the different kind of NACA airfoils, right? NACA airfoils, and then after that we have discussed about the airfoil characteristics. These are the three topics which actually I planned to discuss for today. So with this I am closing my discussion. In next class we will derive expression for the aerodynamic forces using the dimensional analysis, and we will see some practical and numerical problems based on these concepts which we have covered so far. So if you are having any doubt in the topic which we have covered today, right, you can feel free to write in the comment section, or you can reach to me on WhatsApp number, right, already I shared with you. So thank you for your patience for listening this lecture. Have a nice day. Good day.